Hello, this is Tim Pearce speaking on the Service Transformation Podcast. I'm with you today to introduce a series of joint videos between Noventum and Invigors, given that we're both collaborating to advise on everything as a service. With me, there are two senior practitioners, Hilbrand Rostema, who's the MD of Noventum. Noventum advise businesses on making successful transformations, and also Ian Robertson, an executive director of Invigors, who are trusted advisors to the asset finance industry. In this session, this first theme, we're going to talk about bringing business equipment to market. So tackling how manufacturers deliver on benefits marketing promises. We'll discover the prerequisites for offering such a service and how an organisation approaches the practicalities of setting one up. So let me start with an obvious first question, really. But how would you describe everything as a service, Hilbrand?
Everything as a service is a way of combining the let's say delivery of all kinds of services. It could be technical services, it could be business optimization services, with actually providing the finance of a piece of equipment as well, and you would bundle that in a total sort of value package, and that's what I would call everything as a service.
What about you, Ian? What's your views?
Yeah, I think Hilbrand pulled out the characteristics and the attributes pretty clearly. I think the only thing I'd maybe add beyond what was already said is, it's very much a focus on outcomes and performance, which contrasts with, some of the more traditional go-to-market models, which would more normally be characterized by a provision of services and a provision of equipment, whether that's sold equipment or whether that's equipment that's potentially on lease. So, just keying in on Hilbrand's point, it's a bundled go-to-market, and very often that's going to be a compelling value proposition around pricing. But in essence, in short, it's a bundled solution that's focusing on outputs and performance.
Okay, so if you got that description in mind, Ian, what particular examples do you like using to illustrate, to colour such a everything as a service type model?
I think an easy one to visualize for everybody, because we're all probably digesting, video on a PC potentially. So the device as a service, whether that's a laptop or a notebook or another form of reading device, is becoming ubiquitous in the IT market, and the IT market's also a good one to key into because it's probably ahead of a lot of other markets. So that's a domain that's easy for people to picture, I think. And in terms of the model itself, from a corporate perspective, it could involve physical logistics, it could involve data stewardship, it could involve support desks, it could be the imaging of the profile for the with the operating system and all the applicable software that a user might want. And I think increasingly, again, for people who are not from the domain, something that again you see very clearly is different personas, so very tailored offerings. So an executive who does a lot of travel might get a light laptop. You might have somebody who's a power user who gets a very powerful processor and lots of memory, and folks who are more, let's say, middle of the road users who have a tailored offering for them, which is fit for purpose. And back to your first question, Tim, around definition, one of the things that this whole area really focuses upon, and I think it's a central point to take away, is it's a question of delivering state of need, not necessarily state of the art, and that's a really important concept for people to grasp, because outcomes that are tailored to the requirements of the business and not necessarily just a piece of equipment that's delivered, and with services that are not particularly focused upon the requirements of the business. That's a really, I think, central and important point to emphasize.
And thank you. And how about you, Hilbrand? Perhaps take us away from technology for a minute and another example that particularly resonates with you.
Well, in the sort of last 1.5 years, everybody has been exposed to doing tests, COVID tests particularly. And you may wonder who are the companies and the equipment and the services behind it. What we've been observing is that many of these medical equipment companies, particularly the diagnostics companies that provide the laboratory equipment, that used to be a very fragmented industry. Yeah, there's many of these different diagnostics companies and different tests. So very nice example is what we've seen a lot of these companies do is to convert the sales of the equipment and the what they call reagents that goes into the laboratory equipment to see if on the sample if it is testing positive. So you see that that industry has in sometimes a matter of months converted to that different model, which is the as a service, so you pay per test. Whereas that most of the predominant business model of that industry was, I sell you the equipment, I sell you the reagent, and I sell you additional technical services all separately. And obviously now with this huge demand, the volume has obviously exploded. And for the end customers to have something simple to buy, the industry has quickly converted to pay per test. And it's not only convenient for the customer, but you see it has really changed the industry. So from this very fragmented, almost arts and crafts industry, sometimes it has been quickly changing to high volume. Also, laboratories have been concentrated. So the whole logistics around it have been changing. So it's really transforming an entire industry very quickly, and I think everybody is gaining here. It was just the change in thinking that was required, and obviously the urgency in this case. So it's a wonderful example of an as-a-service business.
So, with those examples in mind, and to offer services like that if you're in another business, what's your experience of what needs to be is sort of in place, needs to be present to begin with? What are the prerequisites essentially that you can't do without to start on a journey like this? So Ian, shall we come back to you? What would you see the prerequisites?
Thanks, Tim. I mean, I'm not going to major on the examples we just had, because I think the principles hold everywhere. I would say when you're looking at the journey in the particular industry anybody's sitting within. The thing that's come out in both examples, which is a prerequisite, is that there's a compelling value proposition. What problem are you solving? What's the pain point that you're addressing and making better through the model that you're crafting? Sounds obvious, but you'd possibly be surprised by how many companies really don't test and validate the value proposition and craft and spend a lot of money, invest time and energy and resources without having properly qualified the need and the problem that they're solving. So that's a given. It's got to be financially viable, so it's got to make money. First up, what's the price point, and what's the value capture that you have, and what can you charge that for? And again, that's a key part of the value proposition, obviously, but the pricing element at least, but the scale that you're going to generate, what's your operating platform, from a technical perspective, what human resources needed to be deployed. Key considerations in any go-to-market business, but as in any business, it's essential here. And then things that might be slightly different.